Y'all heard about what happened with Ian Rappaport and Jordan Schultz? Like, really? NFL reporters fighting at Starbucks? Like, this is crazy, man. Anyway, massive update with our Baltimore Ravens that literally has a trickle-down effect on everything that they got coming up. Free agency, but more importantly, the draft. And we're going to talk about it shortly. Before we do, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn them notifications on so you do not miss anything going down with our Baltimore Ravens. And also leave a like on the video because it helps out a lot. Shout out to Cole Jackson. Cole Jackson, he is super big offensive line guy. He loves offensive line. We had him on a couple years ago, but he got his own YouTube channel too. But on Twitter, he is plugged in somehow, some way. I don't know through what, but when he has reported on stuff, he has been on point with it. And he said this a couple of days ago. It said the following. He said, the streets are telling me that Ronnie Stanley and the Ravens are very close on a deal. Just a matter of time. And that's significant too, again, because Cole, he don't just be spitballing stuff and whatnot. Whenever he does say something, he has been on point with it. So he's saying that Ravens and Ronnie Stanley, it's right there. It's right there. We almost at the finish line with them striking a deal with each other. And we kind of got those vibes from the press conferences that Eric DeCosta and John Harbaugh had the other day. Because Eric DeCosta, he was like, yeah, we're going to try to talk to Ronnie Stanley's agent. And we're going to go back and forth as far as negotiations and whatnot. But John Harbaugh was like, oh, yeah, I think that. He said, I think we'll keep Ronnie. And the way that John Harbaugh said it sounded like it was already done. But with Cole, he's just giving us a reminder and letting us know, like, oh, hey, it's right there. And this is huge for the Baltimore Ravens because this would allow the Baltimore Ravens a lot more flexibility heading into, maybe not monetarily flexibility, heading into free agency, but this would allow them as far as the draft to where, all right, you're not pigeonholed into drafting an offensive lineman in round one if you do end up keeping Ronnie Stanley. As far as free agency, does this give you more money? No, it doesn't, because no, this is going to take away money from you, but at the same time, this can solidify your offensive line that much more. Now, I know for me personally, one thing that I have been worried about, and I have said it too, like we know with Ronnie Stanley, his injury history, that's the only thing that kind of like makes me a little nervous when it comes to Ronnie Stanley, because we know like he's missed a lot of time. A whole lot of time over the years. Obviously, this past season was his best health-wise, and he crushed it. He crushed it. Just to see a healthy Ronnie Stanley, and that's how you knew he was super healthy, because if y'all go back to before the season even started, remember the play, the infamous play? Well, they tried to do it in the Bills game, but it didn't work. But the infamous play where the reporters couldn't even talk about it. They couldn't even mention it. But then we saw on Instagram, we saw Ronnie Stanley up in the air catching the football, and it was like, oh, hold up, is that the one? And then they tried it in the Bills game, but then I think Lamar ended up taking a sack, and that, you know, y'all know that whole drive, how that ended up happening. We was on the 2-yard line, and when we got Derrick Henry, we got a Lamar Jackson, but we got 3 points on that drive. Oh, that was nasty. Anyway, so that let us know Ronnie Stanley athletically, he was in really good shape, and he was just really feeling it, because it's been a rough go round, especially over these past couple of years for Ronnie Stanley. It has been, minus last year, it has been rough. So just it was a nice breath of fresh air seeing him out on the practice field every single week, seeing him on game day every single week, every single game. Ronnie Stanley did not miss any time. So once this deal does get done, and hopefully that'll be like ASAP, then that'll just be a beautiful thing. Because, again, with the draft, that'll really allow you to, I know Ravens always talk about BPA, best player available, even though there's some little nuances with that and whatnot. But this will really allow them to do best player available. And because with best player available, we said it before, like especially with any team, a lot of teams say this, oh, yeah, we're going to take the best player available. But that's not always the case. You take the best player available that can also fit your needs. Because if it was truly best player available, again, like I said before, what if it's a quarterback that's coming up in the draft? What if it's a quarterback that's available at your pick and he's the best player? You going to take? No, you're not going to take him. So it's the best player available for you, for your team, for your needs. But anyway, if the Ravens can get Ronnie Stanley signed to this deal ahead of everything, ahead of free agency especially too, because something else that we talked about, like Ravens, they got it. If they're gonna keep Ronnie Stanley, they gotta get it done like before free agency. And you got what's today? The last day of February, the 28th. So you got about 10 days, 10 and a half days, 11 days before the legal tampering period starts. And then you got 12 days before free agency officially starts. But you are going to want to do this ASAP before Ronnie Stanley even gets an opportunity to talk to other teams, before he even sniffs free agency. Because if Ronnie Stanley had an opportunity to talk to other teams about free agency, then he's going to get more money from somebody else. No doubt, and I don't think it should be in any of our minds that there will be another team that will be willing to pay Ronnie Stanley more money than the Baltimore Ravens are, and then the Baltimore Ravens can. They can structure it in a way where it would just be. So it's good that the Baltimore Ravens are getting this thing done now, because this makes life easier for Eric DeCosta when it comes to free agency and the draft. But this also makes life easier for Lamar Jackson, for Derrick Henry, for Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, Isaiah Likely. I don't know if it's going to be Mark Andrews or not. We'll see. But this makes life easier for the Baltimore Ravens offense, because the offensive line shuffling over the year has been crazy. It's been really, really crazy. So if they can get a level of consistency, like if you could have your left and right tackle and your center consistent, because they've been really good. Like, again, Ronnie Stanley, Tyler Linderbaum at center, and then right tackle, Roger Rosengarten. Now, at guard, again, it's going to be Falele. I don't think we should expect it to be anybody else. I know we all got how we feel about Falele. Some people love him. Some people don't love him as much. But we just got to hope that it just continues to improve with the consistency and the opportunity that he's going to be given. And then it's expected that we have a new left guard, because I don't expect Pat McCarty. If they re-sign Ronnie Stanley, I don't expect Pat McCarty to be back. And a lot of us really didn't expect Pat McCarty to be back regardless, with him becoming a free agent. So, but the consistency is important. Consistency is important with anything. You don't just want to have turnover year after 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 year. It's like when you work at a certain job. If you, and this has happened to me plenty of times, if you interviewing for a certain job and they always hiring. Man, why y'all always hiring? Y'all always bringing in new people. Okay, this is nice. Let me tell my boys about this so they can get a job too. If y'all are always hiring, that means y'all are always firing. So there's an issue that's going on with that company. But with the Ravens offensive line, they've been doing a lot of hiring over the past couple of years, because they also been doing a lot of firing. So to allow them to have consistency can be a beautiful thing. So now we reach my favorite part of these videos, where we get to feature your questions. If you'd like to take part in it, you can send an email to teamkeepitclean@gmail.com. Or for the patrons, you can send your question directly on Patreon in a DM. And if you would like to join them, you can go to patreon.com/Ingravenvids. Let's get into our first question from a Team Keep It Clean patron, my guy Sebastian. He actually became a Team Keep It Clean patron this week. He said the following: hope all is still well. Oh yeah, everything's really good. I appreciate you. He said, thanks for answering my last question. No, you ain't got to thank me. Thank you for even sending it in. So I appreciate you. He said, I was curious, how much would you hate seeing the Ravens go safety in the draft, like a Malachi Starks, who was a top 10 player, but a lot of mocks have him falling due to his position. I love Darius Washington and K. Ham, but they are both move around, physical, great tackling safeties. I think K. Ham getting moved back was the right decision, but I think his true position is in the box, and same for Darius Washington. And getting a true ball hawk like Malachi Starks, I think, could lead to a lot of picks. And he can be the third cornerback in some situations off of watching some of his film. Now, if you're talking about that, like, that would give the Baltimore Ravens a lot of flexibility. That would be tricky. That would be a real tricky one. Because I know for Kyle Hamilton, I wanted the Ravens to draft Jordan Davis. I wanted them to get him. That big defensive tackle who would just make life easier for the linebackers and could help out with the secondary as well, because the the defensive line has a huge impact on the on just everything that a team does. If you have a really good defensive line, then y'all see the Eagles. But obviously Super Duper Kyle is amazing, and he has been That boy, he's like that, man. That is a really, really good, tricky question. For them to go safety in the first. With Darius Washington, what are you going to do with him in the future? Right now, he's a restricted free agent. He ain't going nowhere. But when he does become a free agent, potentially in these next couple of years, are you going to sign him to a contract extension? I would expect them to. It ain't going to be no record-breaking contract extension. Like, if you sign him to a contract extension now, while he's a restricted free agent, I got to look at the rules on it. I believe that they can. But if they could sign him to a contract extension now, they could get him for lower than what you're going to be able to get him for a year from now, and obviously 2 years from now and whatnot. Super Duper Kyle is not going to be cheap, obviously. He ain't going to be cheap. So, but as far as that third safety, I was going to say, I wonder how much responsibility they would give to that third safety. But if they drafted him in the first round, because it's different than a late round safety, because your expectations, the lower you draft somebody, the less your expectations are for that person to come in and contribute to your team. Because I was going to say, how much responsibility would they give him in his first year? But you see with Super Duper Kyle, they gave him a lot of responsibility his first year. He was out there from jump, and he did have some early growing pains, but once he locked in after the first couple of weeks, hey, that was it. It was a wrap after that. That's when he really started evolving to Super Duper Kyle. First he was Super Kyle, then he turned into Super Duper Kyle over time. But with him, what you said, Malachi Starks, he would be given a good amount of responsibility, especially if he was a first round pick. And if he is a ball hawk, like you say, and can be a third cornerback in some situations, that would allow them just that much more flexibility. That would allow Super Duper Kyle that much more flexibility, or Darius Washington that much more flexibility. And I do agree with what you said, because you said you believe that moving them, Kyle Hamilton getting moved back was the right decision. Even though his true position is in the box. I feel like Super Duper Kyle, he really ain't even got no true position. That man is just a baller. That's it. Because he's a drop back safety. He's a box safety. He's a pass rusher. He's a slot cornerback. He can do everything. Everything. And I feel like with him moving back this year, did it restrict him? I guess kind of, sort of, but it wasn't like it wasn't bad that he was quote unquote restricted, because he still moved around. He wasn't the Swiss Army knife as much as we had been used to, but it worked. What they did worked. So if you did get another safety, somebody that could do a lot of different things, then that would allow you to disguise your defense that much more. So if they went safety, I'll be like, okay. And if it ends up being Malachi Starks and he can do all these things like you said he could, then it might take me a little while for it to grow on me, but I'll be okay with it. Mark Andrews, future. Next question came from my guy Kevin. He said, what's good, Ingraven? What's up, Kev? He said, hope all is well with you. First time emailing in. I know you're probably going to get a lot of questions and emails about the tight end room. Oh, he's spot on. But I appreciate you sending the email, man. He said, but I feel that we got to let go of Mark Andrews. Oof. This has been a hot topic, and it's going to continue to be a hot topic until we find out what's happening with Mark Andrews. Anyway, he said, to me, it's bigger than the playoff blunder. I love Mark Andrews, but I feel that Likely is the future of this team. After this year, both Likely and Andrews' contracts are up, so they got to make a decision on who to keep anyway. Charlie Kohler, too. Remember, him and Likely got drafted in the same year, and either one of the two were first-round picks. And Likely was actually drafted after Charlie Kohler, I believe. I'm pretty sure he was. But anyway, he said, the Ravens will be doing themselves a disservice by not trying to use him while they can still get value for him. I also just don't see a world where we can just let a younger and potentially better player just sit behind Andrews because of seniority. It would hurt to see Andrews go, but for the benefit of the franchise, it seems like the right thing to do. What do you think? And love the vids. I appreciate you, Kevin. It's tough. It's tough. Because, yeah, you said it's bigger than the playoff blunder, and I think it is. It obviously is. It's got to be because, yeah, Mark Andrews had a terrible fourth quarter in those playoffs, but Mark Andrews also had such a slow start last season, but once he got going, he never looked back. Not until the fourth quarter of the Bills game. But besides that, Mark Andrews, he killed it this year. He was amazing for the Ravens this year. And you just know what he's capable of. I mean, you know what he's done. Mark Andrews improved himself. But with Isaiah Likely, he is and this is like, I don't know if y'all remember, like back, I feel like it happened a lot more in the Joe Flacco Ravens days, where the Ravens, like every offseason, they would have these extremely tough decisions to make, and every year it's like somebody who you really wanted to stay with the team, they would have to let them go. And it would happen every year, it felt like, for the longest. I feel like under the Lamar era, I feel like it hasn't been like that nearly as much. And I don't know if it's because we just been getting a better grasp and understanding of it on the business side. But I don't know. It's just been different in my opinion. But every year, it would be like that. It'd be these players. It's like, oh, no, we got to keep him. And they would have to make the tough decision, let them go. And it seemed like this has been like the offseason where it's like, ooh, what's going to happen with Mark Andrews? What are you going to do? Because Mark Andrews, a baller, but Isaiah Likely, baller too. And Lamar, he got crazy chemistry with Mark Andrews, but he got it with Isaiah Likely too. He got it. We done seen that. We seen it 2 seasons ago when Mark Andrews was out for the longest. We seen it this year when Mark Andrews started off slow, and even when Mark Andrews got healthy, we still seen the chemistry with Lamar and Isaiah Likely. So we know what Isaiah Likely can do, and we said it 2 seasons ago. Like when Isaiah Likely was out there doing his thing, when Mark Andrews was out toward the end of the season, we said, hey, the only thing holding Isaiah Likely back from being a top 5, even a top 3 tight end is opportunity. That's it. It's opportunity. That is literally the only thing, because Isaiah Likely is amazing, man. Y'all know that already. He is amazing. But with Mark Andrews, man, it's such a tricky situation. And yeah, we feel like he's gonna be going, and this, like, and I get what you're saying. You're saying the Ravens will be doing themselves a disservice by not trying to use him while they still can and get value for him. So basically saying to trade him while they can still get value, because after this year, you're not going to get any value for you. Get a comp pick a year from then. Like in 2 years, you would get a comp pick. But right now, Mark Andrews, this is the most value that you're going to be able to ever get for Mark Andrews, because after this year, his deal is done. So you can't trade him after this year. You can't. Well, you can franchise tag him and then trade, but this is the most value you're going to be able to get out of him. So oh man, when it does officially happen, if it does officially happen, because hey, ain't nothing set in stone, but if this does officially happen, oh, it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt. Because then to watch Mark Andrews ball out with somebody else, and you're going to think about all the moments and whatnot, all the good moments. And yeah, there were some bad moments too, but a lot more good than bad moments with Mark Andrews. Got to be straight up about it. I know everybody upset about the playoffs and whatnot, which you should be, but a lot more good came from Mark Andrews than bad. So don't forget about that. But you're right. Like, Ravens, if they're going to make that decision, yeah, it would have to be now to get that value and get whatever draft capital you're going to be able to get back, whatever player you might be able to, whatever it might be, it has to happen this offseason. Next question came from my guy, Ty. He said, bro, you are a true Ravens fan. Nah, we all are. We all just fan in different ways, but I appreciate you, Ty. He said, 1, trade Mark Andrews and OA, save $26 million, and trade the bank for Micah Parsons. If we can't, then settle for Max Crosby. That's not settling. You got some high expectations for what you call settling. I love it though. But that, if we get Micah Parsons, like, and then he said, if we can't get Micah Parsons, we'll take Max Crosby. Like, what? That ain't settling at all. Those will be 2 big wins for the Ravens if those could go down. He said, trade for your boy JC24. So you're saying get Micah Parsons or Max Crosby and bring our boy Jadeveon Clowney. I like you. I love your style of GM. Eric DeCosta, you better watch out, because Ty about to take your job. Anyway, he also said 2, release Broderick Washington, David Ajabo, Kyle Vanoy. He said, why you said Kyle Vanoy? I hope that was just a typo. And Jalen Alma-Davis. Man, you got to cut all them guys. Like, no, if you trading and acquiring Micah Parsons or Max Crosby or Jadeveon Clowney, you ain't got to release those guys. Like, if you want to trade, but you ain't got to release those. You want to try to keep everybody as much as you possibly can. But there's some people that obviously you can't keep everybody, and if you got to make some, well, why not just trade them instead of releasing them? Why not get some kind of value instead of just letting them go?